Joining us for this particular segment is a gentleman who's going to chat with us about one of the ballot questions coming up on the November 3rd general election. Interesting enough, is the gentleman who's my guest. He's also a good friend. Conor Yunits is joining us from the Coalition for Safe Data. How are we doing today, Conor?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
And you are here to represent vote no on one. It's about keeping your data safe. I'm very interested in this because you reached out to me after I had posed a question to some candidates, and you're like, Kevin, you and I need to have a conversation.
Absolutely.
And I said, I'm all about the conversation, and I'm about being as accurate as possible. And if I'm inaccurate, if I'm not giving the proper information, let's give all sides, if at all possible. How did this whole ballot question come to fruition? Was this something that was proposed by your group or the opposition?
The other side, and I appreciate you having me on, because this is as you can tell just from the description, this is an extremely complicated technical proposal, and it's something that was it has a long history. Not this particular issue, but the right to repair in general had a long history in the State House and a long history in Massachusetts politics. But the good news is it's already the law here. It's been the law in Massachusetts since 2013. The right to repair law is not up for a vote, and I think that is the most important thing I need to get across to voters. The right to repair law will continue to exist on November 4th, no matter if question one is voted up or down. What we're talking about in question one is a very small slice of vehicle technology called telematics. And telematics is the wireless information that your car transmits. So that's things like GPS data. If you've got GPS in your car, that is obviously transmitted off of your car to a satellite, bounce back or down to show you where you are. It's things like OnStar or other systems like that. So it's a very specific set of vehicle technology, and it's important to know that is the only piece of right to of vehicle information that is covered under this bill. So I've heard a lot of people say, well, I've got to, I need to ensure that my mechanic has access to my information, so I've got to vote yes on one. Well, your mechanic already has access to the information. That's covered under the right to repair, and that's not going away. I've heard people say, well, yes, we've got to pass question one because I need someone to be able to repair my iPhone or my computer. Again, that's a separate issue. That is not part of question one. Question one refers to this very small slice of vehicle technology. And I'll make 2 points on that, and then we can get deeper into it. But the first is that this information, this telematics information, is not necessary to diagnose and repair a vehicle. Again, we're talking about things like sensors for lane assist. When you see those ads, the car veers out of the lane and it starts beeping and you go back in. We're talking about GPS data. We're talking about these things that improve the safety and security of the vehicle or improve the consumer experience, but they're not necessary or relevant to the actual repair of the vehicle. And in particular, question one would require direct real-time remote access to your vehicle, meaning even when you're not in the shop, somebody would be able to see where your vehicle is, access your vehicle systems, potentially even send commands to your vehicle. Now, we don't expect or worry about local repair shops doing that. What we worry about is that question one creates an open data platform, or an open access platform, So essentially, it creates a system where your car is wirelessly beamed up into the internet and connects to a mobile app. Again, never would be necessary to diagnose and repair a car. A mechanic can get everything they need when you're in the shop to fix it. But what it does do is create enormous risk for misuse, not by the mechanics, but by hackers and others, because look, we know the auto industry is already a target for malicious actors, whether it's state-sponsored or otherwise. This is something the FBI has warned about. This is something that's been on the radar for repair shops and manufacturers for a long time, and that's why manufacturers spend so much money trying to make their systems more secure. Plenty of bad actors would love to hack into vehicles, and frankly, question one will make that easier because it removes manufacturers from the security of their own data and puts it in an open access platform with no language around who protects that, who builds it, who is the gatekeeper of that. And there are far too many unknowns to take the risk here.
It's worth noting that how my question was posed was through a real life experience where I took my motor vehicle to a small shop for diagnosis. And the individual said to me, I can read only so many codes. You're going to have to take it to the dealer because I cannot read the remaining codes. We can attempt to make these fixes because this is what I'm seeing here, but it could be something far greater. And I go, oh, that's interesting. I thought something that was all rectified with the passage of the right to repair years ago. And the individual said no. Now, I have since had further conversations with other individuals about this, you being the conversation starter, and realizing that maybe in fact said shops aren't updating their software as often as they should be. But I will tell you that after talking to that gentleman, I was still having the reoccurring problem and went to the dealership, a local dealership on the South Shore, and they were able to diagnose it, but the cost to fix it was going to be far greater at the dealership than it would have been at the small shop. What model year would this, if in fact this was shut, depending on how it's voted, could this process start, the proposed law?
The ballot question requires that all vehicles beginning with model year 2022 comply with this. Now, anyone that's familiar with cars would know that model year 2022 cars, they start being introduced in 2021. They're already well into production. And so again, what this would do is require the creation of this open data platform, require the creation of an app. And Kevin, you and I are having this conversation over Zoom. This is an app that's been around for a long time now. We all know that Zoom still has cybersecurity problems and all kinds of other issues. Think about trying to create an app in less than a year that connects to every single vehicle system in Massachusetts. It's just simply impossible to do that in a safe way, in a way that can be tested and tried and true. And to the point you just made, look, 75% of people in Massachusetts this is the number that the question one folks will give you, and it's a good number. 75% of people in Massachusetts prefer to get their cars fixed at a local mechanic. And that's not going to change. And as you alluded to, oftentimes, folks don't think they have the ability to get access to the codes, when the reality is it's either the software is not up to date, or the tools that they're using are not the correct tools. But the law guarantees they have access to all the tools that they need. It's on the repair shops to ensure that they've got the right tools. The tools are all available, and that is under the existing law. And so just to go back to the model year issue, so again, it would be model year 2022, which are already starting to roll out. And there is, as a number of cybersecurity experts have warned, there is virtually no way to do this safely in that time frame. And actually, that's something that was raised by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They wrote to legislators in July of this year, looking at question one and saying that it creates a number of cybersecurity risks, including the possibility that state actors could not only access vehicles, but gain control of vehicles and cause accidents and crashes. That's why they call this a potential serious risk to the safety of American families. And that is one of the many reasons why we're urging people to vote no.
Again, if you are just tuning into this particular conversation, being joined by Conor Yunits, and he is with the Coalition for Safe Data. And we're talking about question one, which will be on your November 3rd ballot, if whether you do early voting or if in fact you go in and actually do it in person. What are some of the frequently asked questions that are posed to you as you're out there trying to get the word out about vote no?
Absolutely. So the most frequent question I get is, isn't this just local repair shops versus auto manufacturers? And so in full disclosure, the no side, my coalition, we are funded by automakers. But question one is not funded or supported or predominantly supported by local repair shops. Question one has raised $15.7 million, $3,000, and $3,000 has come from inside Massachusetts. 15.7 million has come from O'Reilly Auto Parts, Napa Auto Parts, AutoZone, Advance Auto Parts, and the various national groups that are funded by those companies. This is about national retail parts suppliers that want access to consumer information. I'm sure that local mechanics hold a dear place in the hearts of those companies, but somehow I doubt they'd be spending $15 million just to prop up mechanics in Massachusetts. This is all about data. It's all about setting a national precedent. They're trying to use Massachusetts as a test subject. I should note this is not the law in any other state. They tried a similar proposal in California a number of years ago, and it was defeated primarily due to opposition from domestic violence and sexual assault prevention groups, from the NAACP with concerns about redlining, and a number of other groups. So this is not the law anywhere else. This telematics information right now is as protected as it can be, and this would significantly increase the risks. Another question I get asked a lot is, frankly, I think we already kind of covered it, but isn't this just right to repair? And again, no, it's not. This will not change the right to repair law. This is all about this one slice of vehicle technology. And then the final question I get asked is, why are we even voting on this? This seems like a pretty complicated issue. And that is absolutely true. And the reality is that this was proposed as legislation in the State House. Before it even had a hearing, the funders of question one put it on the ballot because they had no intention of trying to find a compromise or trying to work with legislators on a safe and secure solution. They are trying to get this past Massachusetts voters under the guise that it's somehow about right to repair.
It's interesting you brought up about these national auto parts dealers. What are the conversations that you're hearing or that you've been privy to as to why they use the beta testing Massachusetts to try to have this be a national model? What are you hearing from sources?
Yeah, well, the history of it is that Massachusetts passed a ballot question in 2012, and then that ballot question formed the national basis for the Memorandum of Understanding, because Massachusetts, I believe, is still the only state that technically has right to repair on its books. The other states are governed by this MOU that they all signed after Massachusetts. So they're using Massachusetts as a test case again to try and get this other issue through. Why they want that data is simple. It's got value to it. Some of these companies own other companies whose business lines are solely to collect and repackage consumer auto information and sell it to third parties. That is a company called AllData, which is fully owned by AutoZone. The data itself has value. The ability to sell more parts, obviously, to consumers has value to them. So this is an issue of major national retailers versus major national automakers. It's not the kind of issue that should be decided by Massachusetts voters. It's really best left either up to the markets or to the legislators.
It's so interesting how, as consumers, we are continuously targeted, and knowing that it's easier and easier with technologies these days. And I'm saying this as yet another thing, a personal experience. Just yesterday, I was chatting with a colleague of mine, and we were talking about getting these little generators, or you could charge them up. They're like lithium batteries that will give you 100,000 milliamps that you can plug in your laptops. And wouldn't you know it, that an hour after that conversation on social media, I was seeing a cornucopia of these little generators, and it's like we're being targeted. Our data is our devices are listening to us. Something's happening here. It's not just through happenstance, and it's happened a few times. So I'm definitely interested and concerned. But in the same vein, have you heard any feedback in regards to the nature of the political ads? Because I have heard people who've felt turned off by the push to say you could be targeted by someone who is a sexual predator. Sure. Have you heard any feedback in regards to advertising like that?
We've definitely heard feedback, and the reality is those ads were based, as I said, on testimony both in California and Massachusetts by domestic violence and sexual assault prevention groups. Because the reality is, anytime you increase access to personal information, specifically around location, real-time location, you're putting people at risk. Not just for sexual assault, but for plenty of other crimes as well. And when you think about, this is not an issue that we've raised yet in our ads, but when you think about how sophisticated these computers are now, right? And as you said, everyone's listening, everyone's connected. These are essentially computers, and question one would require, as I said, two-way access. So you think about how many emails you get, and of course, spam emails asking you to click something. And if you do, you're going to have a computer filled with spam or ransomware or malware. That same thing could happen to your computers. If somebody could get access, they could upload ransomware or malware to your car. You could get a message that says, this car won't start unless you wire $50 to, whatever entity. Those are very real possibilities, because again, this will allow two-way access to unlimited third parties. There's nothing in the bill that prevents the reselling or sharing of information, and that's by design. And one of the things you're going to hear, you'll see former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis saying, he's going on TV now and saying, well, question one is just about mechanical data. It's not about, it doesn't raise risk. Well, what that ad doesn't share is that Ed Davis has been paid $70,000 by the question one folks to share his opinions. And secondly, he's not a cybersecurity expert, nor is he a vehicle technician. And the reality is that cybersecurity groups, and as I said in the HITSA, have said there is a very real risk here. And then the other thing I want to point out is they've really pivoted to trying to say, look, we don't want location data. That's not what this is about. But the Auto Care Association, which is the national group that has contributed $3 million plus to Yes and One, has been going around the country showing a presentation of what they want the end result of question one to be. And it's an application that includes location data, that includes maps, that includes information on behavior data. So the only way we have to judge the end result of question one is by what we've seen from the people that wrote question one. And they're saying that they want location data.
Anything that we haven't covered during our conversation here, but you want to take a moment to touch upon as we wrap up?
I just want to say again that this is not right to repair. And frankly, I want to make clear that the security risk that I'm talking about and the security risk that we've raised, in no way do I want to imply that the risk is from independent mechanics. The risk is from the system that it creates, the open data platform that could be hacked or accessed by any number of third parties. That's where the risk comes in. It's this open data platform that this law creates. We have no problem with that information being shared with local mechanics, because it already is. When you go and you plug your car into the OBD port, you can get all the information you need. And the last point I want to make is, the one thing they say is that, oh, well, sooner or later this OBD port is going to go away, and this is their loophole to get around that. Well, OBD ports are required by federal law under the Clean Air Act, by EPA regulation, by California law. OBD ports are not going away. They're going to be in your car, and you will always be able to plug in and get the access you need to fix your vehicle.
And if folks want to find out more about Vote No on One?
safeandsecuredata.org.
Conor, thank you so much for your time and your patience.
No, I really appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks for having me.